Hi everyone, it's Alex and we're here at 1 o'clock today to talk about understanding anger in children and young people. So this event has been planned for about a month, which has given me enough time to create some content to share with you on the run-up and to market it as much as possible and to let you know out there that it's there and to get you on board. So I'm going to wait until people join because I know that as parents, carers and professionals, we're all very busy people. So the likelihood of us all being able to arrive here at 1 o'clock online together may be a little bit optimistic. Right, so if you're here, I can see one person's watching, that's all I can see. So if you are here, I know that we've been talking and communicating on the events page on the run-up to this event. So do let me know that you're here and I can see who I'm talking to. In the meantime then, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. For those of you that haven't met me already. My name is Alex. Hi Claire. And I have been working therapeutically with children and young people for just over 15 years. My experience was initially working in the context of domestic abuse. So I'm sure you can appreciate when I'm talking about anger, I've got lots of experience working with children and young people. There's lots of anger, lots of valid anger, of course, and lots of misplaced anger as well. So I want to discuss some of my experiences there and hope that you may be able to share some of those experiences as well and that we can learn from those. I'm in private practice, so I'm a psychotherapist in private practice based in Hull, East Yorkshire, and I work with all ages. So I don't just work with children and young people. They do come into private practice, more so actually since I've been doing a lot of online things and having conversations with schools. But I also work with adults as well, and that's actually my largest client base in private practice, and kind of they pay for their own therapy, so it's understandable. On top of that then, I also offer therapeutic parenting. So I'm a psychotherapist, but because I've worked for many years supporting parents, due to my training, I think it goes really hand in hand with being able to support parents through their challenges as parents and carers. So we can only parent based on our experience and our knowledge as it stands. And sometimes we've had difficult parenting experiences ourselves, or that we've developed some quite strong beliefs around parenting, emotions, behaviours, and they sometimes don't serve us very well. That our parents parented us from the best of their ability, but it's not working for us to do the same. And so what I do is therapeutically support parents and carers to think outside the box, to understand the theory behind feelings, development, behaviours, in hope that it helps them navigate and find different solutions to what they've been accessing so far. So I'm going to share some links, so just bear with me. These are the ways in which we can, I don't know whether it, I'm wondering whether, Claire, when I'm going to go to a different page on my laptop, will you let me know whether I stop talking, please? Because I'm just going to copy some links and paste them into the comment box so everyone can find me after the event. So I'm just going to flick over to a page now, and if I stop talking, will you let me know? Right, so hi Lindsay. Right, this link that I'm about to share now is how you can sign up for my newsletter. So I share regular blogs, videos and offers all through my newsletter. I don't send you any spam. If there's anything that's not relevant, then you don't get it. But it's a good way of being able to keep up to date, because Facebook only shows you what other people are interested in, and if you don't look on the actual day, then the likelihood is that you're going to miss it. So if this content is valuable to you and you want to be able to get more of it, then one of the good ideas is to join up for my newsletter. You share this one. You can also contact me through my website, and you can read a little bit more about me in this link that I've just shared. Let me just share. You can also come and join my group for parents and carers. So if you're just watching off the main page, you might not have seen all the links that I've shared in the events page. The one that I've just shared there, which have I shared it? Yes. My Facebook group for parents and carers. So that's where all my content goes. So all the content that I write is with that group in mind. So it's around self-esteem, emotional development, emotional awareness, parenting struggles, and the content, although it's created from a lot of the stuff that happens in private practice, so a lot of the patterns that emerge in there, I'll write some content and I'll share them, because I know that my clients aren't going to be the only ones that have experienced that. I also really welcome lots of questions and input from the parents and carers in the group as well, and I create content around that so that it's as relevant as possible. So if you've been part of the events page on the build up to this, then you may have seen that I've been asking questions and I've been creating blogs around those. So I have that Facebook group because I think that as parents and carers, like I said before, we can only parent to where we're at and knowing what we know and our own experiences. And I think there's so much more we can do if we want to, just through a little bit of knowledge and just through a little bit of guidance and support. So I'm really passionate about it, but my passion aside, it's no good unless I know exactly what it is that you want. So I try and create content, and the best place to be able to kind of swap ideas from you and to me is in that group. So do feel free. There are 3 questions that I ask before you enter the group, and if you don't answer them, then I don't add you to the group, because it's a way of being able to measure your intent, and your perceived value of being in the group. So everyone's safety in that group is really important, and I want people to be in there because they really want the content and they want to develop their knowledge and their awareness around their parenting. So if you don't answer the 3 questions, you don't get added. So you don't have to answer them all, but at least just to kind of show that you've got intent in joining the group by answering at least one question. Just let me check that I'm coming through, Claire. I can see the link. Right. Cool. Right. So that's how to get in touch with me. So I've just mentioned that I've been writing some blogs. This one. So this is a blog that I shared. This is about why I think that anger is a positive emotion. So I'm going to refer to that, but I'm not going to go in as much detail. So if you're listening to the live and you want to know more, then that one is a really good blog to refer back to. A question that came up was, and I used to work around this issue a lot when I was working in the Women's Aid Refuge, is what is safe anger? So if we're going to focus on our children's behaviour when they're feeling angry, I always think about our behaviours as a crutch, and they help us in some way, shape or form, it helps us positively or negatively, but regardless, behaviour is a way of communicating. So if we take a behaviour away and in a sense pull away that crutch, we're leaving them with nothing. So we need to know what it is that we are wanting them to do instead, because we can't expect them to have all these intense emotions, which is what anger is, and then to be able to think clearly and be creative in finding safe ways to be angry. So I've written this blog. Like I said, I'll refer to it again, but if you are watching this and you want some more detail, then please do go back and check that one. And last but not least, something that I encounter a lot, being working with parents in a coaching capacity or even in a therapeutic capacity as a psychotherapy client, that due to our attachment, quite often we want to protect our children from what we perceive as negative emotions. So being sad, scared, angry, lonely, anything that causes us pain, we tend to want to protect our children from it. And I think that we do our children a huge disservice by that, because they don't get to see it modelled, or they don't get to have that open dialogue. So when we're feeling sad and we allow ourselves to be sad as parents and carers, and allow our children to see, that they think, oh, right, so it's not just me that feels like that, or they get to ask you questions, and then they develop their language around it, and they get a lot of permission about emotions being okay. So the last blog that I shared is about how we can model it, so, and how we can therefore give permission, reinforce their own anger and their own ways of being able to express it. So there are the links that, and we're 10 minutes in now, and we've got 7 people watching. Do say hi and let me know that you're there if you want to. And I also want to say that this is being held on my main page. So my main page, unlike my group, the group is private, so nobody can see what's written in there, but the main page is public. So I just want you to be aware that whatever you write in the comments can be seen by the whole public. If you've got any questions that you want to ask me with a little bit more confidentiality, then send me an inbox through the page, or you can also contact me via the website. I've shared the link, or it's alex@counsellinginhull.co.uk. Okay, so let's start talking about anger then. I'd really like to know, out of interest of those that are watching, how old are your children, so that as watching it live, that I can think about the age of your children with the examples that I'm going to give. So if you just pop numbers in the comments, that'd be a great way for me to be able to gauge what kind of examples to use. Right, so one of the big reasons that I chose to do this on anger is that when I speak to parents, and now in private practice, but also when I was working with families in the context of domestic abuse, the focus always seems to be on the behaviour. And I understand why it is, because quite often the behaviours are causing problems. So they're either causing problems in the relationships in the family, that they're either causing problems for the child or young person because of the friendships are struggling, maybe it's affecting school, or maybe there's a real safety issue, that there's a bit of self-harm that's coming through there with head banging or punching walls, or that people are being physically hurt. So I understand there's a need to focus on behaviour. And I also think as well that it's really important that we do focus on the children's behaviour in a way that we tell them that it's not okay. Like, it's not okay to hurt yourself. It's not okay to hurt others. It's not okay to break things or to hurt people emotionally as well through the words that we use. So I think that's really important, but I think we need to balance it. So if we just focus on the behaviour in its entirety, then I think that the emotion itself gets missed. I think that we don't validate then the fact that they are angry and that something is wrong for them, because we get so caught up in the behaviour, and we don't validate how they are effectively processing their emotion, that they're creating opportunity for the release to happen. So that cathartic release of energy, that when, kind of you scream into a pillow, that's the angry energy that we always say has to be spent. Somebody in the group said that this morning, or I think it might have been yesterday, that we have to spend that energy. Otherwise, it's almost like, that Coke bottle analogy. If you shake it up and take the lid off, it spills out everywhere. And if you continue to collect that emotional anger that's linked, the emotional energy, that's linked to anger, then it starts to spill out, and there's so much in there that we can't make any sense of it either. So it's a case of not being able to see wood for trees. I'm really, really angry, but I don't even know why anymore. So it's really important that as we feel angry and anger, that we exchange it a little bit, like tokens. So you collect loads of emotional tokens. You need to give them back. You need to spend them. Otherwise, you end up with a huge bag. They're heavy to carry, and then often something small might trigger it, but you get a whole lot of emotional tokens back. So spending the energy is really important. So yeah, so if we focus on the behavior alone, we miss the underlying stuff of the emotion. The reason as well why this is really important is the idea that sometimes anger is a secondary emotion. So what I mean by this is that it's not the primary or authentic emotion. So I'm not saying that it's not authentic, but there's something underneath it that comes first. Sometimes people, not just children and young people, but as adults as well, we use anger to cover another emotion that makes us feel more vulnerable, or that it is more distressing than anger to feel and to express. So often there's something lying underneath, and the way to tell, like, anger is about fairness and it's about being wronged. When we're angry and someone's hurt us or stolen from us or taken without asking or not considered us, there's a real fairness issue there that we struggle with. And anger is a really good way to be able to communicate that. Verbally, behaviourally, that's the sulk, it's all body language, and it's all appropriate if it's around the reasons why anger is valid, about being fair and being wronged. If that's not around, so let's just consider then some of the questions that have been happening or coming through in the build up to this event is that it's a sense of control. Like, if something changes without warning for a child, that they may display anger. That's not about fairness or being wronged, although it may be perceived that way, so we do need to check that out. But if it doesn't necessarily equate, it doesn't really make sense, then it's possible that there's something underlying, and the anger in this case then is a second. So we need to acknowledge, we need to be able to acknowledge that in the moment the child is anger, but we need to be able to be curious. And I don't think when we see our children being angry in a sense of lashing out or kind of breaking things or trashing the room, we don't always feel like we've got the energy to be curious. And let's be honest, we don't always feel like we want to be. We might just feel fed up, and we might feel spent ourselves as professionals, as parents and carers, because it can be all consuming. It is all consuming for the child and the young person, and it can feel that way for us as well. So, whilst I might talk about strategies and ways of being, I don't want it to come across as a critical thing, because I understand that sometimes we're just at our limited capacity ourselves and we feel like we've got nothing to offer. But often by reflecting and doing stuff like this, we can talk about, ideally, if we're able to be more mindful, then this would work or serve us better than being explosive to or just reacting to our children's anger. Okay, so there's two things that I want to consider here is the idea of mentalization. So that's the ability to be aware of your own reactions, your needs and wants, and the ability to be curious about the other. So let's think about, give you an example. Let me just take a little bit of time to think, just to see what ages we're working with. So we've got 9, 7, 9, nearly 7. So we're just all together. I work with kids. Right, okay. So 9 to 7-year-olds, let's think of a situation where we could use mentalization. So they've all gone back to school recently. Let's take that for an example. So your child comes back in from school, they've thrown the bag in the hallway, they've kicked off the shoes, they've just snatched off the sibling, and they've just spoken to you really inappropriately. And the first thing that we can do is just like, don't snatch from your sister and don't speak to me like that. You know, that's our parenting. That's the way that we put boundaries in. So that's, you know, that's to be expected. However, if you're able to practice mentalization, you're going to be able to be aware of your irritation, your frustration, that they've come in and they've just done that without even saying hello, that they've shown a lack of respect, and that you're irritated by that, and that what you want to do is put boundaries in place, and you want to make them take responsibility for what they've done. So that's your stuff. Being able to hold that then and be curious, so kind of almost just park it, you know, just put it to the side and think, I'm not dismissing that, or I'm not making that not important, but I'm just going to hold it and just see what happens if I'm able to allocate some energy into being curious about the other, so your child, by saying, right, okay, there's something going on. Do you want to talk about it? No. And and it kind of just escalates and it gets even worse. It's okay to be angry whilst being aware and being curious. Right, I'm getting really angry now, or I'm getting cross, or this isn't okay, what's happening? I can see that you're distressed, but I think you need some time out. By just doing that is giving the child or the young person the message that you see them. You're not just seeing the anger, you're not just seeing the behaviour, but you see them, and it gives it an opportunity to go back and reflect at a later date. Do let me know if any of you are doing this already, or if you've got any difficulties or struggles, challenges in mentalising in itself. And then what it does is it creates the opportunity for us to be able to go back and say, do you want to talk about it now? Clearly there's something happening. I did some training where mentalisation was discussed, and there was a carer actually in the group who shared that once they'd learn the ability to do this, so often it's done on reflection, just expecting yourself to be able to do it in the next instance that your child is angry is maybe expecting a little bit too much of yourself. But this carer said, you know, I'd practiced. I used to go away and I used to think, right, okay, on reflection, what could have been happening for my daughter, I think it was at the time. And she said that once she kind of got into the pattern of thinking that way, that one time when she was sent home from school, again, from hitting somebody, and she was very close to being expelled, she was able to say, I'm so cross that this has happened again. And I can just see that you're upset, and I'm really struggling to understand what it is, because you're not speaking to me. All I see is you hitting out, that you're disrespecting teachers, that the teachers are ringing me up on a weekly basis. And actually at that moment, I think it was a teenager, broke down and told her mum that she's actually not angry at all, that she's really struggling and she has planned to take her own life. So that's a really heightened, it was a true one, and one that comes to mind quite easily to be able to share with you, that if we just park our own stuff, so be aware of it and prioritize momentarily, you know, for as much as we can, for as little as we can, our children to be curious instead, that it allows them to be seen, and it just creates a shift. Because quite often, if we just focus on the behaviour as well, there's a lot of shame involved in that. So on the run up to this event, I've had parents say that their child lashes out, that they hit, that they say really hurtful things, and then afterwards cry and feel a lot of shame and guilt. And, you know, so I think that we invite that. If we just focus on the behaviour, we can play a part in that. I think that they'll feel those feelings anyway, because it sometimes they feel as though they've lost control. But by us slowing down our process and being aware of our own stuff, but being able to be curious through practice about our children, it just allows them to be seen in a different way. Let me just check the comments. Oh gosh, yeah, okay. So Lindsay just said that her challenge is getting husband to open up to these ideas. That is a huge challenge, because I think that what we have to acknowledge is that we all have a limited capacity to open ourselves up to this, that we all have our own experiences, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. of our own parenting. And if you grow up with a no-nonsense approach, that certain emotions just aren't okay, or that you just have to get on with it, or the assumption then that our relationship with our emotions is a really linear process, that we just learn how to be happy and sad and angry and scared and communicate and look after ourselves, then there seems to be, you close yourself off to this. But I would say that we are all so very complex and wonderfully different that not one size fits all. I mean, that's such a cliche, isn't it? But it definitely is true. And I think if it's not working, what is the harm in changing it, in changing the way that you deal with it, the changing the way that you think, changing your understanding of it by either watching YouTube videos or reading blogs. The blogs that I share, for example, are all around trying to increase your awareness of yourself and the motivations of your children, so that you feel better equipped. And I'm wondering, Lindsay, actually, whether that comes from quite a vulnerable place. Like, how do we parent differently when we have no other way, understanding really, or experience of being able to do it? And when we feel vulnerable in that sense because we don't know how to do it, or it doesn't come naturally, or we're already really busy and we don't want to invest anything else in trying, sometimes we feel spent, that we get defensive, like our children. So if their primary feeling is about being scared or sad or being let down or shame, quite often anger comes as a defense, and it hides that feeling and it sends people away, and it feels as though it's a protection. So I wonder whether, sometimes when people challenge ideas like this, how to parent differently, it comes from that place. I'm talking already. Can't explain what's to say. Okay, so Lindsay's just asking, so if there's a meltdown, am I right in saying go calm down and come and we'll speak about it afterwards? Yes, you are, but I'll continue to speak, and then I'll mention rage, Lindsay, and the next thing. So mentalization. So when we're wanting to know what the authentic thing is, or the primary feeling, like you, Lindsay, with Declan, if he's unable to talk about it, that's because when children are having a meltdown or rage, it's very similar to the fight or flight that we talk about in anxiety. That the part of the brain that is highly functioning stops the front part of the brain that we need to be able to articulate, to think clearly, to have rational thought, to feel calm, stops working, and we have really limited ability to be able to access it. So you do right by saying, calm down, ground, and think about it. And in rage, we do need to treat that as like we do anxiety. So it's just about grounding and calming and feeling okay again and feeling supported. So, but to find out the authentic thing, the primary feeling, then quite often it always needs to be done on reflection. So like the mentalization, as parents, carers, and professionals, practice it on reflection, the pattern becomes more familiar and you're able to access it. The same applies to our children. So if they're unable to articulate it, if they can't tell you what else is going on, they just feel really angry, or they don't know what it is that's triggered it, we need to work backwards. So have the starting point, which is anger, and then if it doesn't make sense or something else is happening, then we need to rewind it. But we do that on reflection, not when they are feeling angry, because they haven't got the ability to retain the information and to think clearly. So we need to then start developing their emotional awareness so that they get to understand what's happening to them. I mean, I'm sure that we can all, I'm just going to have a quick drink. I'm sure we can all relate to the idea at some point in our lives where we feel like a really, really intense emotion, but we don't see it in very minute detail, we don't always realise the thought that come with that, how our heart beats, or how we feel like we're not getting enough air, how our body, how our hands shake or start to sweat. We're not always aware in such minute detail. And this is emotional awareness. By working backwards and working with them on a reflection or totally out of anger, you can develop their emotional awareness. So someone asked me on the run up to this was that they wanted to know how to use play to explore anger. So I'm going to discuss that, and I'm also going to discuss organised activities, so some activities that you can do as well. So with regards to play, I always say that is a fantastic way in, because it is your child's safe and natural way to be. So they explore the world through play. They communicate the world through play. Only yesterday, were we had quite a long drive home, my 2-year-old was sat in the back, and she has a rabbit that she calls Gaggett, and that's her Snuggie. And the conversations that she has with this Gaggett at the moment is all like, no, and that's not kind. And I know that through playing with her, she is processing some of the things that happen at the childminders. She's processing some of the boundaries that I put in place. So that is their safe way to do it, and it's their natural way to be. So if you can step into that, it makes it not about anger. It takes away the focus that it's about them. It really allows them to continue and tap into their creativity and that free flow connection that they have with that things just roll when you're playing. There are no boundaries. It's just about fun. And so they're able to express themselves, and it doesn't activate that fight or flight part of the brain. So they're able just to continue to engage with you. So let's just say that your child likes Lego. So you can explore anger by using Lego. You can create a scene. So I don't know, let's just say that you've built a house and there are people there and there's a car, and you can, kind of engage with your child and play so that somebody does wrong somebody else. And then you can allow your child to react from a different character. So straight away you're starting to engage in theory and practice and behavior and emotion all around anger, and also develop the dialogue. So you're using words, and you're like, maybe they don't know what that means, and that allows you to talk about it and to continue expand their vocabulary. You can display empathy. You can display consequences. You can talk, kind of go, well, I'm not talking to you now. And what do you think your character is going to do to make things right? Kind of what do you think that they've done wrong that's upset them? So that you really start to unpick. And even though it's not about them, believe me, it still has a very similar effect that it is about them. So when I worked with the children at the refuge, one of the big challenges that I had was the children that were really defended against change, that their safe relationship with me didn't always reflect the relationships outside of the room that we were working in, because their families were quite chaotic and had a lot of challenges. So they were quite defended to the things that I would say and I'd talk about. But subtle changes would happen. Their way of thinking and framing self-harm, for example. So, well, I don't hurt myself when I hit the door. Okay, but you could hurt yourself. No. If I just leave it and I go through play or something else that gets their interest, they will start to develop the awareness and the beliefs that there are other things to do, that that's not necessarily the safest thing, but I have to take it away from them for them to be able to hear it. So play is a really good way. So empathy, consequences. You can also explore your body, your thoughts, your mind, and how they're connected through a dialogue, kind of puppets. Oh, I loved working with puppets when I was at the refuge, because it creates an element of safety. The character, you can create anything that you want, anything goes. And you can go, yes, but my mind hurts because it just thinks all these things all the time. And then you can get to see what your child reacts, what they say back to your puppet, and you get an insight then about how they think and how they process their stuff. So there's a lot to be done with play. Let me just see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, normalize responses. So let's just say, especially the I guess the age of the children that those of you watching live have said that you've got, so 7 to 9, say, that sometimes they can get a bit carried away with play, can't they? And they can go over the top, and it can just kind of, you need to rein it in a little bit. But by allowing them to do that, then you're able to model and normalize appropriate responses. So you can explore kind of, oh, well, when you did that, I felt like this, even though it was in play. So it's not about an angry situation. It's not necessarily about something personal. It's just about the way that you're engaging in the moment. So you can normalize the reactions. You can normalize anger. You can normalize people feeling sad when people do that kind of thing, whatever it is that you're creating. But you know how it can just roll. And I would say just do it in small amounts. Don't try and get a lot of anger content in one play. Just by holding the idea that you can do that and kind of letting it drip in really is the best way, so that it still stays fun and it doesn't change to be about, kind of talking about emotions and in itself. Right, so the other thing then, so you can do it through play and then organised activities. So that's often what I do as a therapist, that I'm not a play therapist. I often use play, but I also, due to resources and being able to work with a child in the moment, whatever comes, I do organised activities. So that might be a storyboard. So you can use storyboards if creativity is something that your children like to engage in. Stories. You can have, if you have an A3 sheet of paper and split it into 6 boxes. In order to use a storyboard effectively, each box, so each part of the story needs a heading, so the child knows what to put inside that. So the first one might just be characters. So they get to draw and create the characters of the story. And it's okay, by the way, to say this is about, it's going to be about, let's talk about being angry and see how we can create a story about it. So it doesn't have to be about them. It's okay for it to be about anger, but it's a way for you, and maybe say it's a way for us to talk about it without getting angry at each other or feeling like we're doing something wrong, or whatever the difficulty or the challenges that you have. So yeah, so every square has a title. So as an example, I've thought of characters. Then the next one would be problem, like what's happening, what's happened with what's been wrong. Or if you don't, try not to narrow it down so much so that your child still gets to be creative and explore and bring in a bit of their own internal world. So the problem, or what went wrong, or what's happening, something really brief. And then another box could be reaction. How did people respond or react to the problem? Bring all the characters in so the flow is still working all the way through. Another one could be consequences. So people react like this. So did they react by punching somebody in the face? Did they react by locking themselves in the bedroom and isolating? Did they react, in all the different ways that your children do and that they might put into the storyboard? What are the consequences then? Like, how did the different characters feel? What was said? And even though all this content might not actually go on the storyboard, by just being curious and going, wow, I noticed that Mr. Pajama Man is looking really angry. How come he's so angry? So that you can be curious without being confrontational. And it doesn't all have to go on the storyboard, but the storyboard is allows the process to happen. So consequences, what was missed? So was anything overlooked, or was there a conversation that would have been helpful that wasn't had, that would have made one of the main character, the character that's having the challenges, would have made them feel better? And another one could be who could help and how. So, kind of, is there a hero to the story? Is someone going to come in and they've got great skills at talking about feelings and understanding the body? So that's one organised activity that's really good, and it doesn't just work for anger as well. That can work for any emotion. If your child is going through, you and your partner are separating, for example, being able to do something like that and explore the challenges is really good, because it just allows them to distance themselves from it, but still connect with the process. Just going to do a quick check-in with the comments. Okay, so Lindsay's just said that her son will hit his head against the couch, and a psychologist has said that that's not a concern because the area, the sofa itself is soft. I've got to say, Lindsay, I think that there's some progress that can be done with Declan with regards to him expressing it more effectively. So if you think about passive and proactive approaches, like passive is, it doesn't help, nothing changes, and proactive is that there's a positive outcome at the back of it. The positive outcome for Declan is that he is expressing his anger and that is releasing it. However, doesn't seem to be changing, so he needs to be able to explore it a little bit better, doesn't he? I do advocate being able to, we used to do a feelings pillar. So that might be another, I've not written that down actually, but that might be another organised activity. Getting a pillowcase, you can get them cheap from Asda or Tesco, just plain white ones. Normal felt tips, you don't even need fabric pens really, and allow them to create a pillowcase for their emotional outlet. Sometimes you can, I don't want to kind of put boundaries in place and tell you how to do this, but we used to do, when I worked at the refuge, we used to have one side for all the positive emotions, so it wasn't just about difficult emotions, and one side for the difficult emotions, and that they was able to draw and put words and whatever it is that made them feel good for the positive side, and the things that they struggled with on the negative side, so that they can scream into it, that they can kind of like hit it against the bed, so that they can punch it. Our children, especially Declan's age, is still developing. So I think that we can look concerningly at a child that throws a doll down the stairs and laughs. But like I said about my toddler, they're processing some unconscious stuff. And the concern is when that starts to be at other people. So when Declan starts banging his head against a wall, or that he starts lashing out at people, or in the scenario that I just gave about harming dolls, that used to happen sometimes in the refuge. But it's about them being able to process some subconscious stuff, and that we might go, oh, it's a good job that's a doll, and just let them know that that's not okay to do that to real people, although I'm sure they know that that's not the reason why they're doing it. So yeah, it's not a concern in the sense that he's not being harmed, Lindsay. And I wouldn't, if I was working with him, it would be about ways to be able to express it, but I'd be looking at doing it, more direct, so that he's able to be able to communicate a little bit better. One that you might find useful is the next example that I was going to give as well, is drawing around your body. So as we're trying to develop our children's emotional awareness, if you've got some old wallpaper, flip it onto the side that you would paste on and draw around their body. Let them do their eyes, they can do clothes if they want to. And then there's a few ways that you can do this. We've spoken about different feelings, and the child has told me where they feel that feeling and they've drawn it. So if it was like nervousness, that it might be butterflies in the tummy, or they might put some running shoes near the heart because the heart beats faster. So again, tapping into the creativity and constantly giving you insight and developing their awareness of their own body, because that when we're aware of our own body, we can read it better. And like sometimes anger, the rage, or the behavior that we link with our anger can just be a case of repeated pattern. Like the brain creates shortcuts. We don't have to learn how to open the door every time we approach a door, because our brain has created a shortcut, and it's very similar to our emotion. Anxiety works on very much a similar basis. If our brain is used to anxious, anxiety and worry and fear being around, we anticipate that everything has that element to it. And fear is quite similar. So it's when we're working with children in the context of anger, it's about repetitive patterns, because in essence what we're doing is rewiring the brain, rewriting our children's expectations and ability to be able to connect with the body and express, and also constantly challenging their beliefs about why it's not okay to talk about or to be vulnerable or to ask for help or to cry. You know, some of those things that we don't ever really want our children to believe in, but they do. So that by repeating the pattern and being curious and being, you know, practicing that mentalization, we're able to be the strong adult, and by strong adult I mean emotionally strong, to hold our children so that they can make mistakes and learn and keep just coming back, a little bit like a toddler. You know, the way when they start to get a little bit more adventurous, they'll walk and they'll turn around and they'll check that you're still there, and it gives them the confidence to continue. Like that, then we need to be that for our children when they are struggling with anger. If they're going to feel safe enough to be able to try new ways or to communicate, they need to know that it's okay to get it wrong. They need to know that sometimes we drop the ball and we go back to hitting our heads against a sofa. We all do that as adults. Even, you know, kind of as a therapist in my training, I had years and years of therapy, which was awesome for learning my own self-awareness, especially my own emotional stuff. But sometimes I drop the ball because there's too much stuff going on in life, and I just didn't have the energy at that moment to connect with my body and realize that I was getting stressed or that I was letting resentment build, for example. So we all drop the ball, and our children need to know that, and our children need to see us drop the ball and earn it and be responsible and talk about it being okay, because this is all the permission. We can talk. One of the blogs talks about how we can talk, we can say to our children, it's okay to feel like this, it's okay to do that. But if we don't do it ourselves, they'll pick up on that, and then something isn't, their little detective, things are going to realize that things don't always add up. So they're not going to be as fluid with the emotions and the permissions that we verbally give them as we might want them to. So yeah, drawing around your body, you can name feelings in it, you can draw the feelings in it. Another good way is to draw like circles and have lots and lots of angry ones and lots of scared ones and lots of happy ones, so they just get to stick it on the body where they feel it. You know, it's life size. You can stick it up against the wall. They can have that in the bedroom. You can refer back to it. So, you know, kind of after a meltdown, you can go, should we go upstairs and have a look at the stuff that we've done? Where do you think that it started? Like when you started to feel like upset and angry and emotional, what was going on in your mind? Like, what do you think your thoughts were? So that on reflection, they're constantly being supported by you and getting all that permission, developing the dialogue, developing their awareness and the strategies then as well. Constantly, you know, refer to the Safe Anger blog that I shared earlier, that the strategies, keep repeating those as well. It's called a broken record technique, but when we do that through practice, it becomes integrated and part of us. It's worth mentioning then, just because Lindsay's brought it up as well, that safe anger, when I talk about safe anger with children and young people, it's not hurting ourselves, not hurting others, and not damaging things. And when I say not hurting, I mean physically and emotionally, so with words as well. All right, just let me check in with the comments. Lisa's just said that she's kind of gone with the punching pillows and things, but recently read that it doesn't teach you how to deal with it. It doesn't. And like we're saying to Lindsay, that's okay to express it, but to develop his emotional awareness so that he can channel it, so that he can communicate, because our feelings aren't what's wrong. It's how we approach it and how we communicate it that can sometimes be not okay. Okay, so that's a little conversation. Great stuff. I love that you're communicating with each other through this. This is what I want. So it's about us all being able to, as parents and carers and professionals, that shame that we might hold as well, that our child struggles or has challenges with anger, it's very misplaced. It doesn't serve us well. So the more that we put this out to other parents and carers, the more we hear that we're not the only ones and that we can learn and feel supported ourselves. So we talk about supporting our children, that we need to feel supported and held as well, which is another reason why this is really important. Journals as well. So if you've got older children, drawing around your body, it can work for teenagers just as much as it can for the younger ones as well. The storyboard can work. And the journaling, so it might be just a free journal, it might be that you have a book specifically for talking about emotions, and you week by week put prompts in it. Today I felt ... Today was I felt angry out of 10. Today I felt sad out of 10. Today I felt happy out of 10. So just prompts that are a way that you, and then check in with them, but it's constantly a way for them to turn their attention inwards. That's the stuff that needs developing, is that sometimes we're just so overwhelmed by what's happening outside of us that we don't learn to look inwards and to understand what our motivations are, to understand what's upsetting us. And then we don't always access support either. So it just stays inside, it manifests, and it can spill out. And then it becomes a pattern and it just reinforces itself. Right, let me think about what else I want to say. Okay, so I just want to talk about rage then. So some of the questions on the run up to this, so the event was, how do you calm them down when they're in a rage? So, this can be from any type of meltdown, really. I'm just thinking about my daughter, the last time that she had a meltdown, and how they can't. I don't think it's important at that moment to make them responsible, to try and get them to take responsibility for the impact of their actions, because that invites the shame. And if they defend themselves from shame, if that's something that they do, then that's going to increase the levels of anger. So in rage, like anxiety, very similar, they're in fight or flight. So the bottom of the brain is activated, their ability to think clearly and to navigate and communicate, to take responsibility, to have empathy, to see how their actions are hurting other people, is really, really limited. And I think that if that's what we're relying on for them to be able to, in the moment, acknowledge that, then I don't think things are going to change, because they're very clearly very defended or very activated at that moment. If you think about the extent of information that the brain is processing at that time, the external stuff the brain is processing, other people and their involvement, also their body, hormones, adrenaline, cortisol. So in the moment with rage, I would treat it very much like anxiety in the fight or flight, and it's about grounding. It's about kind of distracting. That didn't sound right when I said that. So yeah, changing their attention and getting them to breathe, getting them to focus on something else, so that their internal system starts to regulate again. So the whole breathing through the nose, filling the tummy, out through pursed lips, really taking control of your breathing, to kind of get pen and paper and free flow thoughts that are happening, to go outside and go for a run, like Lindsay's saying, to allow them to go upstairs and to calm down, because I guess the external world can be overwhelming. So by taking a break from that, it'll allow a little bit of clarity, and that they can start to come down. So I think that would be the priority, really. acknowledging that, like anxiety, like other emotions, it can be a well-rehearsed process, so it can just happen. Our children don't choose to behave that way. Sometimes in problematic situations, such as it's a way of, kind of being controlling. Sometimes that's anger invites fear from other people, and it's a way of controlling the situation. That might need a little bit more professional support to work through that. But in anger, like on the level that we're talking, that it can just happen, and our children don't choose to behave in those ways, and that's why they feel so bad and remorseful afterwards. It's really important then that on reflection again, that we teach our children to identify their triggers so that they can see patterns. Okay, yeah, I tend to kick off when this happens, or this is what causes my meltdowns. Learn about their body. What is their body telling them? Because we have thoughts and how we'll have physiological experiences before all that behavior spills out. So if they can become more aware of their internal world, they can recognize then, okay, my tummy is doing this and my heart's doing that and my thoughts saying nobody loves me. That generally tells me something. This is very adult language that I'm using, but kind of the children become more aware of it. Discuss your children's support system with them. So when they're at school, who do they feel held and supported by? When they're at grandma's, when they're at aunties, when they're playing outside in the street, when they're at home, who are the people that they trust to talk to and to help them with all this stuff? A good way to do that, especially if it's young ones, is get them to draw around the hand and in each of the fingers about, kind of in all the different situations, 2 hands if, they've got a big support system, is write down the people who they feel supported by. And don't just take it on face value that grandma is nice and supports them. What makes her so supportive? So what about when you talk about this? Kind of the things that she says to you, does that feel okay? Does that feel like she understands you? Yeah? Oh, brilliant. Okay. So, what about granddad? Oh, right. So granddad says, send you out into the hallway. Do you think that makes you, does that help, or does that kind of make you feel bad? So help them develop their awareness about their support as well, and why it's important to access it. When it comes to safe anger, explore safe ways that will meet their needs. If they have really intense anger, then quite often the activities, the strategies that they're going to have to engage in is to release a high level of anger. So it might be, okay, getting them into gymnastics, getting them into boxing. It's not about the aggression, it's about the energy. Think of all emotion as an energy, and the more that we channel it and we continually empty that full bucket, the more capacity we have to be resilient and manage daily stresses. So it's not about kind of finding an angry spot for an angry child. It's about what will work for them, what are they interested in, but that will help them spend that energy. And keep the pattern going and the rewiring so that it becomes more familiar, and allow them to drop the ball, let them see that you drop the ball, all that stuff that I've mentioned already. So I've covered all that. So I guess this is for parents and carers then that wanted to understand anger a little bit more. So what we've covered is that it's really important to spend the angry energy, that often there is something underneath, and that we need to increase their emotional awareness to be able to facilitate their relationship with their emotions, that we don't all just develop a natural linear relationship with our emotions. The world is full of information, and what one person says, another person may undo with the behavior, with what they show. Their own inability to cry, their own inability to express anger because they go off and shut themselves in a room, but they tell me it's okay to be angry, and kind of. So we can develop our own awareness as parents, carers, professionals, and then that's what we need to do with our children as well, so that they can realize that actually their anger comes from being vulnerable. I work with clients, to give an example, I don't know, let's just say someone comes in and says that they're very angry, they don't know why, married, children, job, successful job, and I'm just trying to create like an ideal picture, but they're angry. And then it transpires that they don't really feel heard or validated, or seen a lot of the time, that they go into doing and being kind to everybody else, but they don't really feel like they repay it back. Can you see how anger may be built? It's collected. So angry emotional tokens are collected, and then they get thrown at somebody for something that it's to the other person doesn't feel like it's justified. So it's about, once our children are more aware of their physiological reaction, the situations, the external situations that trigger it, they are more able to understand that it's about being vulnerable. What do we need when we're vulnerable? Like, okay, so does anger meet that need? So when you're feeling scared and you go smack somebody, you know, you're more lonely than you were when you started. Have you ever thought of it like that? And these are the conversations that help them develop their awareness. So we don't have to ignore the behavior, but we need to be curious about what's going on. So that mentalization, that ability to be aware of our own stuff, but to be curious about theirs, so that we see them and not just the behavior. Right, I feel like that's just kind of, let's just have a look at the comments. Lisa has said that she's convinced her son's anger comes from anxiety. Anger is a huge symptom of anxiety, so you know, not necessarily wrong. And if you feel, if your child feels as though they're out of control, a belief is that anger helps them feel in control, or the anxiety triggers the fight or flight, and so that the anger is a response. There's a number of situations which could, you could be on really on point with that. So Lindsay's saying the same as well. Okay, so before I go, does anyone else have any questions? I want to say as well that I had a very chaotic weekend, and what I wanted to be able to have for you are some anger packs. So I'm developing an anger pack for developing the emotional awareness, and also for strategies to be able to express anger, for under 11s and over 11s in both cases. All I've got at the moment is 2 people that are saying that they're available to do the artwork for me when I send over the sheets, but this weekend went out the window with regards to plans. So rolling with the punches, I've got nothing to offer you at the moment, but what I'll need, I've done it before where I've created activity sheets thinking that people just want them, and they've not actually been downloaded when they've been created. So I'm not going to do it like that this time. I'm not going to put, kind of pay for them to be done. So I need expressions of interest. So if you want any packages with regards to anger, developing emotional awareness and strategies, ways to be angry for under 11s and for over 11s, then please show your interest, because otherwise I'm not going to bother getting them done, because it's a lot of work. What else was I going to say? I also run online coaching as well, so groups. So the last one was about anxiety and self-esteem and confidence. So if you want to get in touch with me because you'd like to work with me a little bit more, either because you're a professional parent or carer and you want to be able to have access to me for over a longer period of time with more than what the group offers, because that's quite a general information, then get in touch as well. Because what we do is we start a group, we have a private Facebook group for the people that are in it, and you have weekly lives, there are coaching calls, so you can get to ask me questions and we can really kind of push through the challenges that you're having with your children. But again, that's on a that only happens if you want it to happen. So get in touch with me if there's anything else that I can help you with. I'm not seeing any more questions, so just let me just check that I've not missed any. It's not moving. Oh, there we go. Right, no, I don't think I've missed any. So I know as well that I've got a list of people that aren't able to make the live today. So if you're watching on replay, by all means comment, put an R before your comment, which will allow me to know that you're watching it on replay. because otherwise I'm going to think that I've answered all the questions that have come through. Okay, right, so I'm going to leave it there with you. So if you get the link afterwards to watch it on replay, any questions, please still ask them. I want you to get as much from this as you can. I've put all my details in the comments. So there's the blogs about anger, there's ways to make contact with me, join the group, sign up for the newsletter. And just know that, you know, we don't have to do this perfectly. There is no perfect way to be angry. There is no perfect way to parent a child that has challenges with their anger. We can only do our best, and we have limited resources. If you have a family and you work and you have a house or any combination of those, you know, you're often stretched. So be gentle on yourself. Often I'll start work with a child and I'll have to switch it up numerous times. But like I say, I've got 15 plus years of doing that now, and it becomes a little bit easier to create the opportunities and, you know, kind of activities for us to be able to explore. So just be, and ask me questions. That's absolutely fine. All right, that's what I'm here for. That's what I want to be here for. Lisa, you are very welcome. So if you're in the group, I'll see you in there. Ask any questions, comment on the video, and I'll be in touch. And let me know actually what you would like the next live to be on. So we've done anxiety, ways to get your children to talk about feelings, and we've done anger. So what's next? Speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.